The Netherlands. Informally, Holland is a country located in northwestern Europe with overseas territories in the Caribbean. It is the largest of the four constituent countries of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The Netherlands consists of 12 provinces. It borders Germany to the east and Belgium to the south, with a North Sea coastline to the north and west. It shares maritime borders with the United Kingdom, Germany, and Belgium. The official language is Dutch, with West Frisian as a secondary official language in the province of Friesland. Dutch, English, and Papiamento are official in the Caribbean territories. Netherlands literally means lower countries in reference to its low elevation and flat topography, with 26% situated below sea level. Most of the areas below sea level, known as polders, are the result of land reclamation that began in the 14th century. In the Republican period, which began in 1588, the Netherlands entered a unique era of political, economic, and cultural greatness, ranked among the most powerful and influential in Europe and the world. This period is known as the Dutch Golden Age. During this time, its trading companies, the Dutch East India Company and the Dutch West India Company, established colonies and trading posts all over the world. With a population of over 17.9 million people, all living within a total area of 41,850 square kilometers, of which the land area is 33,500 square kilometers. The Netherlands is the 33rd most densely populated country, with a density of 535 people per square kilometer. Nevertheless, it is the world's second largest exporter of food and agricultural products by value, owing to its fertile soil, mild climate, intensive agriculture, and inventiveness. The four largest cities in the Netherlands are Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, and Utrecht. Amsterdam is the country's most populous city and the nominal capital, though the primary national political institutions are located in The Hague. The Netherlands has been a parliamentary constitutional monarchy with a unitary structure since 1848. The country has a tradition of pillarization and a long record of social tolerance, having legalized prostitution and euthanasia, along with maintaining a liberal drug policy. The Netherlands allowed women's suffrage in 1919 and was the first country to legalize same-sex marriage in 2001. Its mixed market advanced economy has the 11th highest per capita income globally. The Hague holds the seat of the States General, Cabinet, and Supreme Court. The port of Rotterdam is the busiest in Europe. Schiphol is the busiest airport in the Netherlands, and the fourth busiest in Europe. Being a developed country, the Netherlands is a founding member of the European Union, Eurozone, G10, NATO, OECD, and WTO, as well as a part of the Schengen area and the trilateral Benelux Union. It hosts intergovernmental organizations and international courts, many of which are in The Hague. Holland. The term Holland has frequently been used informally to refer to the whole of the modern country of the Netherlands in various languages, including Dutch and English. In some languages, Holland is used as the formal name for the Netherlands. However, Holland is a region within the Netherlands that consists of the two provinces of North and South Holland. Formerly these were a single province, and earlier the county of Holland, which included parts of present-day Utrecht. The emphasis on Holland during the formation of the Dutch Republic, the 80 Years' War, and the Anglo-Dutch Wars in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, made Holland a pars pro toto for the entire country. Many Dutch people object to the country being referred to as Holland instead of the Netherlands, on much the same grounds as many Welsh or Scottish people object to the United Kingdom being referred to as England. In particular, those from regions other than Holland find it undesirable or misrepresentative to use the term Holland for the whole country, as the Holland region only comprises 2 of the 12 provinces, and 38% of Dutch citizens. As of 2019, the Dutch government officially has preferred the Netherlands instead of Holland when talking about the country. Often Holland or Hollanders is used by the Flemish to refer to the Dutch in the Netherlands, and by the Southern Dutch to refer to the Northern Dutch. In the southern province of Limburg, the term is used for the Dutch from the other 11 provinces. The use of the term in this context by the Southern Dutch is in a derogatory fashion. History. The oldest human traces in the Netherlands, believed to be about 250,000 years old, were found near Maastricht. At the end of the Ice Age, the nomadic late Upper Paleolithic Hamburg culture hunted reindeer in the area, using spears. The later Arendsburg culture used bow and arrow. From Mesolithic Moglamosian-like tribes, the world's oldest canoe was found in Drenthe. Indigenous late Mesolithic hunter-gatherers from the Swifter Band culture, related to the southern Scandinavian Ertebal culture, were strongly linked to rivers and open water. Between 4800 and 4500 BC, the Swifter Band people started to adopt from the neighboring linear pottery culture the practice of animal husbandry, and between 4300 and 4000 BC agriculture. The funnel beaker culture erected the dolmens, large stone grave monuments found in Drenthe. There was a quick transition from the funnel beaker farming culture to the pan-European cordware pastoralist culture. In the southwest, the Seine-Wasmarne culture related to the Villardingen culture survived well into the Neolithic period, until it too was succeeded by the cordware culture. The subsequent Bell beaker culture introduced metalwork in copper, gold, and later bronze and opened new international trade routes, reflected in copper artifacts. Finds of rare bronze objects suggest that Drenthe was a trading center in the Bronze Age. The Bell beaker culture developed locally into the barbed wire beaker culture and later the Elp culture, a Middle Bronze Age culture marked by earthenware pottery. The southern region became dominated by the related Hilversum culture. Celts, Germanic tribes, and Romans from 800 BC onwards, the Iron Age Celtic Hallstatt culture became influential, replacing the Hilversum culture. Iron ore brought a measure of prosperity and was available throughout the country. Smiths traveled from settlement to settlement with bronze and iron, fabricating tools on demand. The king's grave of Oss was found in a burial mound, the largest of its kind in Western Europe. The deteriorating climate in Scandinavia from 850 BC and 650 BC might have triggered the migration of Germanic tribes from the north. By the time this migration was complete, around 250 BC, a few general cultural and linguistic groups had emerged. The North Sea Germanic Ingevans inhabited the northern part of the Low Countries. They would later develop into the Frigii and the early Saxons. The Weser, Rhine Germanic extended along the Middle Rhine and Weser and inhabited the Low Countries south of the great rivers. These tribes would eventually develop into the Salian Franks. The Celtic Latine culture expanded over a wide range, including the southern area of the Low Countries. Some scholars have speculated that even a third ethnic identity and language, neither Germanic nor Celtic, survived in the Netherlands until the Roman period, the Nordwest Block culture. The first author to describe the coast of Holland and Flanders was the geographer Pytheas, who noted in c. 325 BC that in these regions, more people died in the struggle against water than in the struggle against men. During the Gallic Wars, the area south and west of the Rhine was conquered by Roman forces under Julius Caesar from 57 BC to 53 BC. Caesar describes two main Celtic tribes living in what is now the southern Netherlands, the Menapii and the Eburones. Under Augustus, the Roman Empire would conquer the entirety of the modern-day Netherlands, incorporating it into the province of Germania Antiqua in 7 BC, but would be repelled back across the Rhine after the Battle of Teutoburg Forest in 9 AD, with the Rhine becoming fixed as Rome's permanent northern frontier around 12 AD. Notable towns would arise along the limes Germanicus, Nijmegen and Voorburg. In the first part of Gallia Belgica, the area south of the limes became part of the Roman province of Germania Inferior. The area to the north of the Rhine, inhabited by the Frigii, remained outside Roman rule, while the Germanic border tribes of the Batavi and Canaanophates served in the Roman cavalry. The Batavi rose against the Romans in the Batavian Rebellion of 69 AD but were eventually defeated. The Batavi later merged with other tribes into the Confederation of the Salian Franks, whose identity emerged in the first half of the 3rd century. Salian Franks appear in Roman texts as both allies and enemies. They were forced by the Confederation of the Saxons from the east to move over the Rhine into Roman territory in the 4th century. From their new base in West Flanders and the southwest Netherlands, they were raiding the English Channel. Roman forces pacified the region but did not expel the Franks, who continued to be feared at least until the time of Julian the Apostate, when Salian Franks were allowed to settle as foederati in Texandria. After the Roman government in the area collapsed in roughly the year 406, the Franks expanded their territories into numerous kingdoms. By the 490s, Clovis I had conquered and united all these territories in the southern Netherlands in one Frankish kingdom, and from there continued his conquests into Gaul. During this expansion, Franks migrating to the south eventually adopted the vulgar Latin of the local population. A widening cultural divide grew with the Franks remaining in their original homeland in the who kept on speaking Old Frankish, which by the 9th century had evolved into Old Low Franconian or Old Dutch. A Dutch-French language boundary hence came into existence. To the north of the Franks, climatic conditions improved, and during the migration period Saxons, the closely related Angles, Jutes, and Frigii settled the coast. Many moved on to England and came to be known as Anglo-Saxons, but those who stayed would be referred to as Frisians and their language as Frisian. Frisian was spoken along the entire southern North Sea coast. By the 7th century, a Frisian kingdom under King Altgisel and King Redbad emerged with Traegdom as its center of power, while Dorestad was a flourishing trading place. Between 600 and around 719 the cities were often fought over between the Frisians and the Franks. In 734, at the Battle of the Bourne, the Frisians were defeated after a series of wars. With the approval of the Franks, the Anglo-Saxon missionary Willibrord converted the Frisian people to Christianity and established the Archdiocese of Utrecht. However, his successor Boniface was murdered by the Frisians in 754. The Frankish Carolingian Empire controlled much of Western Europe. In 843, it was divided into 3 parts: East, Middle, and West Francia. Most of present-day Netherlands became part of Middle Francia, which was a weak kingdom and subject to numerous partitions and annexation attempts by its stronger neighbors. It comprised territories from Frisia in the north to the Kingdom of Italy in the south. Around 850, Lothair I of Middle Francia acknowledged the Viking Rurik of Dorestad as ruler of most of Frisia. When the Kingdom of Middle Francia was partitioned in 855, the lands north of the Alps passed to Lothair II and subsequently were named Lothringia. After he died in 869, Lothringia was partitioned into Upper and Lower Lothringia, the latter comprising the Low Countries that became part of East Francia in 870. Around 879, another Viking expedition led by Godfrid, Duke of Frisia, raided the Frisian lands. Resistance to the Vikings, if any, came from local nobles, who gained in stature as a result, and that laid the basis for the disintegration of Lower Lothringia into semi-independent states. One of these local nobles was Gerolf of Holland, who assumed lordship in Frisia, and Viking rule came to an end. High Middle Ages. The Holy Roman Empire ruled much of the Low Countries in the 10th and 11th century but was not able to maintain political unity. Powerful local nobles turned their cities, counties, and duchies into private kingdoms that felt little sense of obligation to the emperor. Holland, Hainaut, Flanders, Gelre, Brabant, and Utrecht were in a state of almost continual war or paradoxically formed personal unions. As Frankish settlement progressed from Flanders and Brabant, the area quickly became Old Low Franconian. Around 1000 AD, due to several agricultural developments, the economy started to develop at a fast pace, and the higher productivity allowed workers to farm more land or become tradesmen. Towns grew around monasteries and castles, and a mercantile middle class began to develop in these urban areas, especially in Flanders, and later Brabant. Wealthy cities started to buy certain privileges for themselves from the sovereign. Around 1100 AD, farmers from Flanders and Utrecht began draining and cultivating uninhabited swampy land in the western Netherlands, making the emergence of the County of Holland as the center of power possible. The title of Count of Holland was fought over in the Hook and Cod Wars between 1350 and 1490. The Cod faction consisted of the more progressive cities, while the Hook faction consisted of the conservative noblemen. These noblemen invited Duke Philip the Good of Burgundy to conquer Holland. Burgundian, Habsburg and Spanish Habsburg Netherlands. Most of the imperial and French fiefs in what is now the Netherlands and Belgium were united in a personal union by Philip the Good in 1433. The House of Valois-Burgundy and their Habsburg heirs would rule the Low Countries from 1384 to 1581. The new rulers defended Dutch trading interests. The fleets of the County of Holland defeated the fleets of the Hanseatic League several times. Amsterdam grew and in the 15th century became the primary trading port in Europe for grain from the Baltic region. Amsterdam distributed grain to the major cities of Belgium, northern France, and England. This trade was vital because Holland could no longer produce enough grain to feed itself. Land drainage had caused the peat of the former wetlands to reduce to a level that was too low for drainage to be maintained. Under Habsburg Charles V, all fiefs in the current Netherlands region were united into the 17 provinces, which included most of present-day Belgium, Luxembourg, and parts of France and Germany. In 1568, under Philip II, the 80 Years' War between the provinces and their Spanish ruler began. The level of ferocity exhibited by both sides can be gleaned from a Dutch chronicler's report. On more than one occasion men were seen hanging their own brothers, who had been taken prisoners in the enemy's ranks. A Spaniard had ceased to be human in their eyes. On one occasion, a surgeon at Veer cut the heart from a Spanish prisoner, nailed it on a vessel's prow, and invited the townsmen to come and fasten their teeth in it, which many did with savage satisfaction. The Duke of Alba attempted to suppress the Protestant movement in the Netherlands. Netherlanders were burned, strangled, beheaded, or buried alive by his blood council and Spanish soldiers. Bodies were displayed along roads to terrorize the population into submission. Alba boasted of having executed 18,600, this figure does not include those who perished by war and famine. The first great siege was Alba's effort to capture Haarlem and thereby cut Holland in half. It dragged on from December 1572 to the next summer, when Haarlemmers finally surrendered on July 13 upon the promise that the city would be spared from being sacked. It was a stipulation Don Fadrick was unable to honor, when his soldiers mutinied, angered over pay and the miserable conditions of the campaign. On November 4, 1576, Spanish tercios seized Antwerp and subjected it to the worst pillage in the Netherlands' history. The citizens resisted but were overcome, 7,000 were killed and 1,000 buildings were torched. Following the sack of Antwerp, delegates from Catholic Brabant, Protestant Holland, and Zeeland agreed to join Utrecht and William the Silent in driving out Spanish troops and forming a new government for the Netherlands. Don Juan of Austria, the new Spanish governor, was forced to concede initially, but within months returned to active hostilities. The Dutch looked for help from the Protestant Elizabeth I of England, but she initially stood by her commitments to the Spanish in the Treaty of Bristol of 1574. When the next large-scale battle occurred at Gembloux in 1578, the Spanish forces won easily. In light of the defeat at Gembloux, the southern states of the 17 provinces distanced themselves from the rebels in the north with the 1579 Union of Arras. Opposing them, the northern half of the 17 provinces forged the Union of Utrecht, in which they committed to support each other against the Spanish. The Union of Utrecht is seen as the foundation of the modern Netherlands. Spanish troops sacked Maastricht in 1579, killing over 10,000 civilians. In 1581, the northern provinces adopted the Act of Abjuration, the Declaration of Independence, in which the provinces officially deposed Philip II. Against the rebels, Philip could draw on the resources of the Spanish Empire. Elizabeth I sympathized with the Dutch struggle and sent an army of 7,600 soldiers to aid them. English forces faced the Spanish in the Netherlands under the Duke of Parma in a series of largely indecisive actions that tied down significant numbers of Spanish troops and bought time for the Dutch to reorganize their defenses. The war continued until 1648, when Spain under King Philip IV recognized the independence of the 7 northwestern provinces in the Peace of Munster. Parts of the southern provinces became de facto colonies of the new Republican Mercantile Empire. Dutch Republic. Following the Declaration of Independence, the provinces of Holland, Zeeland, Groningen, Friesland, Utrecht, Overijssel, and Gelderland entered into a confederation. All these duchies, lordships, and counties enjoyed a significant degree of autonomy and was governed by its own administrative body known as the States Provincial. The confederal government, known as the States General, was headquartered in The Hague and comprised representatives from each of the 7 provinces. The sparsely populated region of Drenthe was part of the Republic, albeit not considered a province in its own right. Moreover, during the 80 Years' War, the Republic came to occupy a number of generality lands located in Flanders, Brabant, and Limburg. These areas were primarily inhabited by Roman Catholics and lacked a distinct governmental structure of their own. They were utilized as a buffer zone between the Republic and the Spanish-controlled southern Netherlands. In the Dutch Golden Age, spanning much of the 17th century, the Dutch Empire grew to become one of the major seafaring and economic powers. Science, military, and art were among the most acclaimed in the world. By 1650, the Dutch owned 16,000 merchant ships. The Dutch East India Company and the Dutch West India Company established colonies and trading posts all over the world. The Dutch settlement in North America began with the founding of New Amsterdam in 1614. In South Africa, the Dutch settled the Cape Colony in 1652. Dutch colonies in South America were established along the many rivers in the fertile Guiana Plains, among them colony of Suriname. In Asia, the Dutch established a presence in India, the Dutch East Indies, Formosa, and the only Western trading post in Japan, Dejima. During the period of proto-industrialization, the empire received 50% of textiles and 80% of silks import from the India's Mughal Empire. Many economic historians regard the Netherlands as the first thoroughly capitalist country. In early modern Europe, it had the wealthiest trading city in Amsterdam, and the first full-time stock exchange. The inventiveness of the traders led to insurance and retirement funds as well as phenomena such as the boom-bust cycle, the world's first asset inflation bubble, the tulip mania of 1636 to 1637, and the world's first bear raider, Isaac Le Mayer. In 1672, known in Dutch history as the Rampjar, the Dutch Republic was attacked by France, England, and 3 German bishoprics simultaneously, in what would become known as the Franco-Dutch War. At sea, it could successfully prevent the English and French navies from blockading the western shores. On land, however, it was almost taken over by the advancing French and German armies from the east. It managed to turn the tide by inundating parts of Holland. From 1672 to 1712, the Republic, led by William III of Orange and Anthony Heinsius, would regularly clash with France in what some historians have come to call the 40 Years' War. In the 9 Years' War and the War of the Spanish Succession, the Republic was at the center of anti-French coalitions. The Dutch ultimately successfully defended the Spanish Netherlands, established a barrier there, and their troops proved central to the alliance which halted French territorial expansion in Europe until a new cycle began in 1792 with the French Revolutionary Wars. However, the wars left them effectively bankrupt, and inflicted permanent damage on the Dutch merchant navy. While they remained the dominant economic power in the Far East, Britain took over as the preeminent global commercial and maritime power. Between 1590 and 1713, the United Provinces consistently possessed one of Europe's largest and most capable armies. However, following the conclusion of the War of the Spanish Succession, other major powers such as Prussia, Austria, Britain, and Russia significantly expanded their military forces. The Republic struggled to match these developments, and gradually assumed the status of a mid-tier power. However, historians have sometimes overstated the extent of this decline, especially when considering the period up to the 1750s. In the 18th century, the Dutch Republic had seen a state of a general decline, with economic competition from England and long-standing rivalries between the two main factions in Dutch society, the Republican Staatsgezindten and the supporters of the Stadtholder the Prinsgezindten, as main political factions. With the armed support of revolutionary France, Dutch Republicans proclaimed the Batavian Republic, modeled after the French Republic and rendering the Netherlands a unitary state on January 19, 1795. The Stadtholder William V of Orange had fled to England. From 1806 to 1810, the Kingdom of Holland was set up by Napoleon Bonaparte as a puppet kingdom governed by his brother Louis Bonaparte. However, King Louis Bonaparte tried to serve Dutch interests instead of his brothers, and he was forced to abdicate on July 1, 1810. The emperor sent in an army and the Netherlands became part of the French Empire until November 1813, when Napoleon was defeated in the Battle of Leipzig. William Frederick, son of the last Stadtholder, returned to the Netherlands in 1813 and proclaimed himself sovereign prince. 2 years later, the Congress of Vienna added the southern Netherlands to the north to create a strong country on the northern border of France. William Frederick raised this united Netherlands to the status of a kingdom and proclaimed himself as King William I in 1815. William became hereditary Grand Duke of Luxembourg in exchange for his German possessions. However, the southern Netherlands had been culturally separate from the north since 1581, and rebelled. The south gained independence in 1830 as Belgium, recognized by the northern Netherlands in 1839 as the Kingdom of the Netherlands, was created by decree, while the personal union between Luxembourg and the Netherlands was severed in 1890, when William III died with no surviving male heirs. Ascendancy laws prevented his daughter Queen Wilhelmina from becoming the next Grand Duchess. The Belgian Revolution and the Java War in the Dutch East Indies brought the Netherlands to the brink of bankruptcy. However, the cultivation system was introduced in 1830. In the Dutch East Indies, 20% of village land had to be devoted to government crops for export. The policy brought the Dutch enormous wealth and made the colony self-sufficient. The Netherlands abolished slavery in its colonies in 1863. Enslaved people in Suriname would be fully free only in 1873. The Netherlands remained neutral during World War I, in part because the import of goods through the Netherlands proved essential to German survival until the blockade by the British Royal Navy in 1916. That changed in World War II, when Germany invaded the Netherlands on May 10, 1940. The Rotterdam Blitz forced most of the Dutch army to surrender. During the occupation, over 100,000 Dutch Jews were transported to Nazi extermination camps, only a few survived. Dutch workers were conscripted for forced labor in Germany, civilians who resisted were killed in reprisal for attacks on German soldiers, and the countryside was plundered for food. Although there were thousands of Dutch who risked their lives by hiding Jews from the Germans, over 20,000 Dutch fascists joined the Waffen-SS. Political collaborators were members of the fascist NSB, the only legal political party in the occupied Netherlands. On December 8, 1941, the Dutch government in exile in London declared war on Japan, but could not prevent the Japanese occupation of the Dutch East Indies. In 1944–45, the 1st Canadian Army liberated much of the Netherlands. Soon after VE Day, the Dutch fought a colonial war against the new Republic of Indonesia. Decolonization. In 1954, the Charter for the Kingdom of the Netherlands reformed the political structure as a result of international pressure to carry out decolonization. The Dutch colonies of Suriname and Curaçao and dependencies and the European country all became countries within the kingdom, on a basis of equality. Indonesia had declared its independence in August 1945. Suriname followed in 1975. The Netherlands was one of the founding members of Benelux and NATO. In the 1950s, the Netherlands became one of the 6 founding countries of the European Communities, following the 1952 establishment of the European Coal and Steel Community, and subsequent 1958 creations of the European Economic Community and European Atomic Energy Community. In 1993, the former two were incorporated into the European Union. Government encouraged emigration efforts to reduce population density prompted some 500,000 Dutch to leave the country after the war. The 1960s and 1970s were a time of great social and cultural change, such as rapid depillarization. Students and other youth rejected traditional mores and pushed for change in matters such as women's rights, sexuality, disarmament, and environmental issues. In 2002 the euro was introduced as fiat money, and in 2010 the Netherlands Antilles was dissolved. Referendums were held on each island. As a result, Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba were incorporated as special municipalities upon the dissolution of the Netherlands Antilles. The special municipalities are collectively known as the Caribbean Netherlands. Geography. The Netherlands is geographically very low relative to sea level and is considered a flat country, with about 26% of its area and 21% of its population below sea level. The European part of the country is for the most part flat, with the exception of foothills in the far southeast, up to a height of no more than 321 m, and some low hill ranges in the central parts. Most of the areas below sea level are caused by peat extraction or achieved through land reclamation. Since the late 16th century, large polder areas are preserved through elaborate drainage systems that include dikes, canals, and pumping stations. Much of the country was originally formed by the estuaries of 3 large European rivers, the Rhine, the Meuse, and the Scheldt, as well as their tributaries. The southwestern part of the Netherlands is a river delta of these rivers, the Rhine, Meuse, Scheldt delta. The European Netherlands is divided into north and south parts by the Rhine, the Waal, its main tributary branch, and the Meuse. These rivers functioned as a natural barrier between fiefdoms and hence historically created a cultural divide, as is evident in some phonetic traits that are recognizable on either side of what the Dutch call their great rivers. Another significant branch of the Rhine, The IJssel River discharges into Lake IJssel, the former Zweiter. Just like the previous, this river forms a linguistic divide. People to the northeast of this river speak Dutch Low Saxon dialects except for the province of Friesland, which has its own language. Government and politics. The Netherlands has been a constitutional monarchy since 1815 and a parliamentary democracy since 1848. The Netherlands is described as a convocational state. Dutch politics and governance are characterized by an effort to achieve broad consensus on important issues. The Netherlands was ranked as the 17th best electoral democracy in the world by VDem Democracy Indices in 2023 and 9th most democratic country in the world by the Democracy Index in 2022. The monarch is the head of state, at present King Willem-Alexander of the Netherlands. Constitutionally, the position is equipped with limited powers. By law, the king has the right to be periodically briefed and consulted on government affairs. The executive power is formed by the Council of Ministers, the deliberative organ of the Dutch cabinet. The cabinet usually consists of 13 to 16 ministers and a varying number of state secretaries. 1 to 3 ministers are ministers without portfolio. The head of government is the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who often is the leader of the largest party of the coalition. The Prime Minister is a primus inter pares, with no explicit powers beyond those of the other ministers. Dick Schoof has been Prime Minister since July 2024, succeeding the longest-serving Prime Minister Mark Rutte. The cabinet is responsible to the bicameral parliament, the States General, which also has legislative powers. The 150 members of the House of Representatives, the lower house, are elected in direct elections on the basis of party list proportional representation. These are held every 4 years, or sooner in case the cabinet falls. The provincial assemblies, the states provincial, are directly elected every 4 years as well. The members of the provincial assemblies elect the 75 members of the Senate, the upper house, which has the power to reject laws, but not amend them. Political culture. Both trade unions and employers' organizations are consulted in policy making in the financial, economic, and social areas. They meet regularly with the government in the Social Economic Council. The Netherlands has a tradition of social tolerance. In the late 19th century, this Dutch tradition of religious tolerance transformed into a system of pillarization, in which religious groups coexisted separately and only interacted at the level of government. Protection for LGBT and abortion rights are enshrined within the Netherlands' foreign aid policy. No single party has held a majority in parliament since the 19th century, and as a result, coalition cabinets had to be formed. Since suffrage became universal in 1917, the Dutch political system has been dominated by 3 families of political parties: Christian Democrats, Social Democrats, and Liberals. In November 2023, the right-wing Populist Party for Freedom of Geert Wilders was the winner of a general election, securing 37 out of 150 seats. A cabinet was inaugurated in July 2024, and Dick Schoof succeeded Mark Rutte as Prime Minister. Foreign relations. The foreign policy of the Netherlands is based on 4 basic commitments: to Atlantic cooperation, to European integration, to international development, and to international law. One of the more controversial international issues surrounding the Netherlands is its liberal policy towards soft drugs. The historical ties inherited from its colonial past in Indonesia and Suriname still influence the foreign relations of the Netherlands. Many with heritage from these countries now live permanently in the Netherlands. Economy. Since the 16th century, shipping, fishing, agriculture, trade, and banking have been leading sectors of the Dutch economy. The Netherlands has a high level of economic freedom. The Netherlands is one of the top countries in the Global Enabling Trade Report, and was ranked the 5th most competitive economy in the world by the Swiss International Institute for Management Development in 2017. The country was ranked the 7th most innovative nation in the world in the 2023 Global Innovation Index, down from 2nd in 2018. As of 2020, the key trading partners of the Netherlands were Germany, Belgium, the United Kingdom, the United States, France, Italy, China, and Russia. The Netherlands is one of the world's 10 leading exporting countries. Foodstuffs form the largest industrial sector. Other major industries include chemicals, metallurgy, machinery, electrical goods, trade, services, and tourism. Examples of international Dutch companies operating in the Netherlands include Randstad, Heineken, KLM, financial services, chemicals, petroleum refining, electronic machinery, and satellite navigation. The Netherlands has the 17th largest economy in the world, and ranks 11th in GDP per capita. The Netherlands has low income inequality, but wealth inequality is relatively high. Despite ranking 11th in GDP per capita, UNICEF ranked the Netherlands first in child well-being in rich countries, both in 2007 and in 2013. Amsterdam is the financial and business capital of the Netherlands. The Amsterdam Stock Exchange, part of Euronext, is the world's oldest stock exchange and is one of Europe's largest bourses. As a founding member of the euro, the Netherlands replaced for accounting purposes its former currency, the gulden, on January 1, 1999. Actual euro coins and banknotes followed on January 1, 2002. 1 euro was equivalent to 2.20371 Dutch guilders. In the Caribbean Netherlands, the United States dollar is used instead. The Netherlands is a conduit country that helps to funnel profits from high-tax countries to tax havens. It has been ranked as the 4th largest tax haven in the world. The Dutch location gives it prime access to markets in the United Kingdom and Germany, with the port of Rotterdam being the largest port in Europe. Other important parts of the economy are international trade, banking, and transport. The Netherlands successfully addressed the issue of public finances and stagnating job growth long before its European partners. Amsterdam is the 5th busiest tourist destination in Europe, with more than 4.2 million international visitors. Since the enlargement of the EU, large numbers of migrant workers have arrived in the Netherlands from Central and Eastern Europe. The Netherlands continues to be one of the leading European nations for attracting foreign direct investment and is one of the 5 largest investors in the United States. The economy experienced a slowdown in 2005, but in 2006 recovered to the fastest pace in 6 years on the back of increased exports and strong investment. The pace of job growth reached 10-year highs in 2007. The Netherlands is the 4th most competitive economy in the world, according to the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Report. Language. The official language of the Netherlands is Dutch, which is spoken by the vast majority of inhabitants. The dialects most spoken in the Netherlands are the Brabantian Hollandic dialects. Besides Dutch, West Frisian is recognized as a second official language in the northern province of Friesland. West Frisian has a formal status for government correspondence in that province. 4 other languages are protected under the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages. The first of these recognized regional languages is Low Saxon. Low Saxon consists of several dialects of the Low German language spoken in the north and east of the Netherlands, like Twerents in the region of Twente, and Drents in the province of Drenthe. Limburgish is recognized as a regional language. It consists of Dutch varieties of Meuse Rhenish and is spoken in the southeastern province of Limburg. Yiddish and the Romani language were recognized in 1996 as non-territorial languages. English has a formal status in the special municipalities of Saba and Sint Eustatius. It is widely spoken on these islands. Papiamento has a formal status in the special municipality of Bonaire. The Netherlands has a long tradition of learning foreign languages, formalized in Dutch education laws. Some 90% of the total population are able to converse in English, 70% in German, and 29% in French. English is a mandatory course in all secondary schools. In most lower-level secondary school educations, one additional modern foreign language is mandatory during the first 2 years. In higher-level secondary schools, the acquisition of 2 additional modern foreign language skills is mandatory. Besides English, the standard modern languages are French and German, although schools can replace one of these with Chinese, Spanish, Russian, Italian, Turkish or Arabic. Additionally, schools in Friesland teach and have exams in West Frisian. Religion. Forms of Christianity have dominated religious life in what is now the Netherlands for more than 1,200 years, and by the middle of the 16th century the country was strongly Protestant. The population was predominantly Christian until the late 20th century. Although significant religious diversity remains, there has been a decline of religious adherence. In 2020, Statistics Netherlands found that 55% of the total population declared itself non-religious. Groups that represent the non-religious in the Netherlands include Humanistic Verbond. Catholics comprise 20% of the total population, Protestants. Muslims comprised 5.2% of the total population, and followers of other Christian denominations and other religions like Judaism, Buddhism, and Hinduism comprised the remaining 5%. A 2015 survey from another source found that Protestants outnumbered Catholics. The southern provinces of North Brabant and Limburg have historically been strongly Catholic, and some residents consider the Catholic Church as a base for their cultural identity. Protestantism in the Netherlands consists of a number of churches within various traditions. The largest of these is the Protestant Church in the Netherlands, a united church which is Calvinist and Lutheran in orientation. It was formed in 2004 as a merger of the Dutch Reformed Church, the Reformed churches in the Netherlands, and a smaller Lutheran church. Several Orthodox Calvinist and liberal churches did not merge into the PKN. Although Christianity has become a minority in the Netherlands, it contains a Bible Belt from Zeeland to the northern parts of the province Overijssel, in which Protestant beliefs remain strong. Several Christian religious holidays are national holidays. Islam is the second largest religion in the state. The Muslim population increased from the 1960s as a result of large numbers of migrant workers. This included migrant workers from Turkey and Morocco, as well as migrants from former Dutch colonies, such as Suriname and Indonesia. During the 1990s, Muslim refugees arrived from countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina, Iran, Iraq, Somalia, and Afghanistan. Since 2000 there has been raised awareness of religion, mainly due to Islamic extremism. Another religion practiced is Hinduism, with around 215,000 adherents. Most of these are Indo-Surinamese. There are sizable populations of Hindu immigrants from India and Sri Lanka, and Western adherents of Hinduism-orientated new religious movements such as Hare Krishnas. The Netherlands has an estimated 250,000 Buddhists or people strongly attracted to this religion, mainly ethnic Dutch people. There are about 30,000 Jews in the Netherlands, though the Institute for Jewish Policy Research estimates range from 30,000 to 63,000, depending on how the number is calculated. The Constitution of the Netherlands guarantees freedom of education, which means that all schools that adhere to general quality criteria receive the same government funding. This includes schools based on religious principles by religious groups, especially Catholic and Protestant. 3 political parties in the Dutch parliament are based upon the Christian belief. Several Christian religious holidays are national holidays. A survey in December 2014 concluded that for the first time there were more atheists than theists in the Netherlands, while the remainder of the population was agnostic or atheistic. In 2015, a vast majority of the inhabitants of the Netherlands said they had never or almost never visited a church, and 59% stated that they had never been to a church. Of all the people questioned, 24% saw themselves as atheist, an increase of 11% compared to the previous study done in 2006. The expected rise of spirituality has come to a halt according to research in 2015. In 2006, 40% of respondents considered themselves spiritual. In 2015 this has dropped to 31%. The number who believed in the existence of a higher power fell from 36% to 28% over the same period. Culture. The Netherlands has had many well-known painters. In the Middle Ages, Hieronymus Bosch and Peter Bruegel the Elder were leading Dutch pioneers. During the Dutch Golden Age, the Dutch Republic was prosperous and witnessed a flourishing artistic movement. The Dutch masters, spanning this 17th century era, included Rembrandt, Johannes Vermeer, Jan Steen, and Jacob van Ruysdael. Famous Dutch painters of the 19th and 20th century included Vincent van Gogh and Piet Mondrian. Literature flourished during the Dutch Golden Age, with Joost van den Vondel and P.C. Hooft as the most famous writers. In the 19th century, Multatula wrote about the poor treatment of the natives in the Dutch colony. Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank is the most translated book from Dutch. Other important 20th century authors include Harry Mulisch, Jan Wolters, Helle Haas, Willem Frederik Hermans, Cees Nooteboom, and Gerard Reve. Various architectural styles can be distinguished in the Netherlands. The Romanesque architecture was built between 950 and 1250. Gothic architecture was used from about 1230. Gothic buildings had large windows, pointed arches, and were richly decorated. Brabantine Gothic originated with the rise of the Duchy of Brabant and spread throughout the Burgundian provinces. Dutch Baroque architecture and classicism is especially evident in the West. Other architectural styles are Art Nouveau, Expressionism, Vestigial, Traditionalism and Brutalism. Erasmus and Spinoza were famous Dutch philosophers. The Dutch scientist Christian Huygens discovered Saturn's moon Titan, argued that light traveled as waves, invented the pendulum clock, and was the first physicist to use mathematical formulae. Antony van Leeuwenhoek was the first to observe and describe single-celled organisms with a microscope. Windmills, tulips, clogs, cheese, and cannabis have grown to symbolize the Netherlands, especially among tourists. Cuisine. Dutch cuisine is simple and straightforward, and contains many dairy products. Breakfast and lunch are typically bread with toppings, with cereal for breakfast as an alternative. Traditionally, dinner consists of potatoes, meat, and vegetables. The Dutch diet was high in carbohydrates and fat, reflecting the dietary needs of the laborers whose culture molded the country. During the 20th century this diet changed and became more cosmopolitan, with most global cuisines being represented in the major cities. In early 2014, Oxfam ranked the Netherlands as the country with the most nutritious, plentiful, and healthy food. Modern culinary writers distinguish between 3 regional forms of Dutch cuisine: Northeast, West, and South. The regions in the Northeast are the least populated areas of the Netherlands. The late 18th century introduction of large-scale agriculture means the cuisine is known for its meats. The relative lack of farms allowed for an abundance of game and husbandry, though dishes near the coastal regions include a large amount of fish. The various dried sausages, belonging to the Metwurst family of Dutch sausages, are found throughout this region. Smoked sausages are common, of which Rookwurst is the most renowned. Larger sausages are eaten alongside stamppot, hutspot, or zuurkool, whereas smaller ones are eaten as a street food. The provinces are home to hard-textured rye bread, pastries, and cookies. As a coastal region, Friesland is home to low-lying grasslands, and thus has a cheese production in common with the Western cuisine. Cookies are produced in great number and contain a lot of butter and sugar. The traditional alcoholic beverages are beer and Genever, a high-proof juniper-flavored spirit, that came to be known in England as gin. An exception within the traditional Dutch alcoholic landscape, Advocaat, a rich and creamy liqueur made from eggs, sugar and brandy, is native to this region. In the west, the abundance of water and flat grasslands mean the area is known for its dairy products, which include prominent cheeses such as Gouda, Leiden, and Edam, as well as Leerdammer and Beemster, while the adjacent Zandstreek in North Holland has since the 16th century been known for its mayonnaise and typical whole-grain mustards. A byproduct of the butter-making process is considered typical for this region. Seafood such as soused herring, mussels, eels, oysters, and shrimps are widely available and typical for the region. The southern Dutch cuisine consists of the cuisines of the Dutch provinces of North Brabant and Limburg and the Flemish region in Belgium. It is renowned for its rich pastries, soups, stews and vegetable dishes. It is the only Dutch culinary region that developed an haute cuisine. Pastries are abundant, often with rich fillings of cream, custard, or fruits. Cakes, such as the Villa from Limburg and the Moerko and Boschabal from Brabant, are typical pastries. Savory pastries abound, with the Wurst and Bruge being the most popular. The alcoholic beverage of the region is beer. There are many local brands, ranging from Trappist to Kriek.